Welcome in, everybody, to Betting Pros. It's time to place your bets. It is me, Joey P, Joe Pisapia, and today it's time to look ahead to Week 14 in the NFL. And I, for one, am very happy to bury Week 13 into a deep, dark grave and never speak of it again. My worst week of betting in the NFL season this year. I hated it. It was terrible. I know Pat Fitzmaurice wasn't too pleased with it either, but can you see the grin on YouTube for Matthew Freedman? Because he was obviously on the opposite of a lot of things we were on. So he is happy. Two of us are miserable. So that means we look ahead. But of course, we're going to hit Monday Night Football as well. Gentlemen, a lot of injuries racking up. We have a lot of buys this week too. A weird confluence of events. We're going to break down and see if we can find any early value with any of them. But before we do, I want to remind everybody we are brought to you by BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. Download the BetMGM app right now before you do anything else and start your wagering there with us over at Betting Pros. And gentlemen, tonight we have a game that we've seen historically has not really gone well for one Tom Brady. Yet still at home, Tom Brady and the Buccaneers are 3-point favorites to the New Orleans Saints right now. The number is 41. Plus 145 is the number if you like the Saints to upset Tom Brady. And I know it's been a rough sled for the New Orleans Saints in 2022. But Matthew Freedman, since you're the one in a good mood this morning, let's start with you on this one. Do you see any value left in this line? Because I know there was some value, but it seemed to slip through your fingers.
Yeah, a week ago when we talked about it, this line was 6. I bet it then. Moron that I am, forgot to put it in the app, but whatever. And then it hung around for 3.5 for a while, but I have this projected at 2.75. So I'm not really seeing any value at 3. If I had to take a side, it would still be on the Saints. And then also I had the under at 42.5. The line there is now 41. I'm not really seeing any value there, but if I had to take it, I would take the under.
All right, Fitz, when you look at this game real quick on Monday night, is there anything that stands out to you, anything you want to go after?
Not either side, Joe. I'm a little tempted to take the under. I mean, the Saints are getting Marshawn Lattimore back. He's been kryptonite for Mike Evans for years now. And really, Dennis Allen, the Saints head coach and former defensive coordinator, has kind of had Tom Brady's number since Brady entered the NFC South. So I kind of like the under a little bit here, but you referenced it, Joe. This past weekend of betting was so bad. Do I try to chase after some of the losses? Do I just sit on my couch and tighten my tourniquet and, so I don't bleed out after this past weekend?
I will speak experience, Fitz. I tried to do that in the 4 o'clock hour. It did not go well. So I think you just sit this one out. You take some time. You put your phone far, far away from you, so you're not any temptations, any in-game betting tonight. And you just let it ride, and you let Week 13 die a slow, painful death, because that's Joe, what I wanted to do.
I'm going to disagree. I'm going to disagree just a little bit. I will say, I know I kind of pussyfooted around it earlier. I think actually 39.7 is what I have as the projection. So at 41, I still think there's value on the under.
Yeah. Okay. And there you
Joe,
go. So Freeman's still betting.
I knew I was in trouble in Week 13 when before Freedman and I did the Sunday live stream. Freedman is like, we're on the opposite end of quite a few bets this week. I should have known that was the one thing we agreed on was Broncos Ravens under. So that was one bet that went well, but that was like starting a game of horse and banking in a 4-foot layup. They could have played that game 3 times and not gone over. Then I moved outside of 15 feet and started firing shots and, throwing up a lot of air balls, not catching any nets on those. So it was a tough day.
Let's turn the page to Week 14. Before we do, let's take a quick break in the action to tell you about an Isaiah McKenzie signed Buffalo Bills mini helmet that can be yours from our friends at Pristine Auction. All you have to do is subscribe to the Betting Pros YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Betting Pros. It's very easy. So go there, subscribe. We've got all the podcasts on there. We've got all the live content, the streams that Pat was talking about earlier, Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football. It's all there for you. And all you have to do is be a subscriber. Make sure you leave a comment on the video. That's it. That's all you got to do. And we're going to announce the winner right here on the channel at some point. So click that little bell till it goes ding for notifications so you know if you're the winner and every time a piece of content drops here on Betting Pros. Let's skip ahead now to Week 14 in the NFL. Lots of buys. Buy-Mageddon Part 2 here. 6 teams won't be playing. So let's talk about who is on Thursday. The Las Vegas Raiders coming off a win. The Los Angeles Rams coming off another loss. It's 5 straight, I believe, for the Rams. Gross. Oof. Wow. But nonetheless, they are, of course, 5.5-point underdogs at home to the Las Vegas Raiders. 43 is the number. If you like the Rams for the upset, plus 185. They've been keeping it simple lately. in Las Vegas, get the ball to Devontae Adams and get out of the way. I think this is a pretty good strategy. I like this strategy. It seems to be working for them. So, Fitz, what are your thoughts here on this early line when we look ahead to Thursday Night Football this week between the Rams and the Raiders?
Yeah, when you've got Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs, that makes scheming up a game plan a little bit easier, I would think. Get the ball to those two guys, stand back. Yeah, so the Rams are pretty much a smoldering crater at this point in the season. And the only thing I wonder about this game, like, is Sean McVay too good an offensive schemer to lay this sort of points with a Raider team that, frankly, I've underestimated all year and that seems to have its act together all of a sudden. I just wonder if that's a little too tall against a McVay team at home. Not that the Rams have a big home field advantage, but, they really hung around with Seattle yesterday in a game that we thought would maybe be an easy win for Seattle. Not so the case. The Rams didn't cinch that one until late. So, I'm not really inclined to bet a side on this one. I've pretty much got it within half a point of the actual line, and same with the total. Like, I'm not too interested in betting this one either way.
Freedman, I mentioned the streak of the Rams, but I did not mention the streak of the Raiders. They've won 3 in a row. Little cardiac kids kind of action, a little style wise, but doesn't that kind of breed a little sense of, hey, everything's going to go our way and a little bit of confidence here? Because the Raiders are starting at least to get on the winning side of things. And this is a great time to catch the Rams. Do you think the 5.5 is the right number, or do you think maybe there's still some value here?
Yeah, at 5.5, if I had to take a side, it would be the Raiders. I did bet this at 5 in the look ahead market. I have it projected early on at 6 right now. So 5.5, not really anything significant. If it dipped down to 5, maybe I would get back into it. The Rams, like, for some reason, maybe it's because of McVay, whatever it is, like, they took money last week, and it was the right side. And I think people are a little bit skeptical of the Raiders. I know the market was really on them early in the year, and then they massively disappointed in the market, turned against them. So this could be a situation where the Rams take money. And if that happens, I would probably go back to the Raiders.
Okay, let's go to the next game here. An in-division matchup, a big one. Last time these two teams met, the Jets were the upsetter and the Buffalo Bills the upsettee. The Bills are now 9-3, the Jets 7-5 after dropping a game in Minnesota yesterday, a very close one. 9.5 is the number here. The Buffalo Bills are favored by 44.5 is the over-under, and then plus 340 on the money line for the Jets if they're going to sweep the series in 2022. Freedman, 9.5, a very large number. The Jets defense very good. The Jets were very competitive yesterday, especially towards the end, and I think showed a lot of chutzpah, as they would say, that they didn't kind of fold up the tents as the same old Jets. They were in this game. They came up short, but they did fight all the way through. Buffalo Bills this time, I think, a little bit more prepared perhaps for the Jets. What do you think about this number here and any value early on in week 14?
So I was impressed with the Jets and what they did last week. But they still weren't able to find the end zone. You imagine that shakes out at some point. But that said, I still think this number is too short. Which feels weird because it's a big number. But if you look at, I don't remember exactly what the week was, but when these teams played earlier in week 9, the Jets were hosting. This line was 12.5. And yeah, okay, that was too long. All right. But the Bills are now at home field, and this number has dropped 3 points. That is too much considering that the Bills are now like pretty healthy. They've gotten back a lot of their key defenders. Tre'Davious White is starting to play more. I have this number projected at 11.5. I don't think Fitz is quite there with me, but I don't think he's also like on the other side of this bet.
Fitz, the last time these two teams did lock up on the 6th of November, it was a 3-point variance between these two teams. Now we're up to 9.5. So still a lot of faith. Buffalo at home. I get all of that, but is Vegas not taking the Jets defense seriously enough potentially?
That's kind of what I think. And I'm actually a smidge on the other side of this one. I've got it at 9. So whereas Freedman thinks this is not a tall enough line, I think it's maybe a little too tall, which makes me nervous because, Freedman was right about everything in week 13. And
regression is bound to strike at some point.
So, I mean, it's just like we saw the Jets thoroughly outplay the Vikings yesterday. More on that soon. And their offense is their offense is actually pretty legit now. It's funny, like the Jets, when they have anyone except Zach Wilson at quarterback, apparently they become this pass-happy team. Remember them early in the season with Joe Flacco throwing it around 50 sometimes a game?
I remember it, yeah.
Yeah, and how many passes did Mike White attempt yesterday? Like 57 or something like that. So they've actually got a little bit of a punch in their running game now with Zonovan Bam Knight. So, and maybe Robert Saleh just has the diagnosis of this Bills offense. I mean, maybe that's possible. Maybe the Bills just had a bad day back in week 9, but you know, I think the Jets can hang around in this and cover a fairly big number.
To Fitz's point, really quickly, Saleh, I think he's like 7-3, 7-2 against the spread in division. Like that's like he's pretty good. Yeah.
All right. By the way, 57 pass attempts for Mike White yesterday. Just looked it up. So who's counting? But yeah, 57. Does Zach Wilson have that many the whole season? I gotta look at that. I'm not sure what that number is. 57.
Funny how they protected him for so long, and then like Joe Flacco or Mike White, air it out.
Yeah, just go ahead, go crazy. It's like the kid with the learner's permit. Like they just refuse to let him get behind the wheel and drive the car. Maybe there's a good reason. Maybe the headband's a little too tight for Zach Wilson. We shall see. The only thing uglier than my betting world for Week 13 was Deshaun Watson's performance. The Cleveland Browns did come out with a W, though, thanks to the defense and the ineptitude of the Houston Texans. So there you go. They are now 5-7. They are 4.5-point underdogs traveling to Cincinnati, as they should be. Cincinnati, Joe Burrow, just taking it to Patrick Mahomes every chance he gets. I mean, Joe B is as cool as the other side of the pillow. I love me some Joe Burrow. I love Mahomes too, man. But, man, Joe Burrow is just big spots, man. I love a guy who shows up in big spots, and this guy always does. You hope that there's no letdown here in this game. That's the only thing you're trying to be cautious of. But it feels like they smell blood in the water in this division. It feels like with Lamar Jackson potentially out for we're not exactly sure how long, and the way the Ravens have played lately anyway, this division's very much in play. 4.5-point favorites at home, 48.5 is the number, plus 183 for the Cleveland Browns. But Fitz, let's talk about this here. Is there any letdown, any concern here on this number with Cleveland coming to town? Do you think Joe Burrow and the Bengals understand and recognize the position they're in right now? It's a huge win they're coming off of. Don't let your foot off the gas. Keep pressing, and the division might be theirs.
Well, there's that. And here's another reason why I don't think we're going to see a letdown, Joe. The Browns kicked the Bengals' tails on Halloween night, 32-13 in Cleveland.
And they have been Joe Burrow's kryptonite.
They have been, yeah. I mean, that was by far the worst the Bengals have played all season. So I think there's going to be a little bit of a revenge narrative added to this. And I just think the Browns are getting way too much credit here, especially after seeing an offensive drop-off for them, going from Jacoby Brissett to Deshaun Watson, who did not look very good in his first start, after looking not very good in a preseason game earlier in the fall. I mean, yeah, their passing game felt more dangerous with Jacoby Brissett. So, like, I think this line just gives them way too much credit. I've got it at 6.5, and I have already jumped on this early line on the Bengals.
Now, last time these two teams hooked up too, Jamar Chase not available, I believe, if memory serves. So now we're getting back to a different set of circumstances here, Freedman. So in your opinion, with Jamar Chase back healthy, with Joe Burrow and company coming off a huge win, do you see any early value here, or do you see potentially a trap like we see typically when the Browns and Bengals square up, that we end up thinking, oh, yeah, it's the Bengals, they're the better team, and then typically the Browns for some reason seem to have their number?
I'm with Fitz on this one, and I have it projected at 5, but I know that projection doesn't take into account the fact that I probably didn't downgrade the Browns enough based on what they did last week, because they won the game. They won pretty handily, but they did not look good. That had more to do with the Texans being very bad instead of the Browns actually doing anything functional at all. And the Bengals, like, I've moved them up pretty aggressively in the power ratings, but I still think there's significant upside here. So as Fitz was talking, I went and bet this at BetMGM, sponsor of the show.
The king of sportsbooks.
Yes, the king of sportsbooks at minus 4.5.
All right, there you have it. Let's move on to the next one here. The Dallas Cowboys. Boy, they figured it out late, didn't they? What an offensive explosion towards the end of that game. 9-3 they are now against the Houston Texans, their Texas rival. This number is 16.5. Is the biggest number I've seen. I don't know, it's the biggest number all year, gentlemen. I don't remember seeing a
it might
16.
be.
Since, I think it's the biggest one. I remember some 13s, maybe a 14. Don't remember 16 and a half. And look, deservedly so. 45 is the over under on this one. Plus 900. I feel like the Houston Texans for the incredible upset. I do not. It's just a matter of, is this number too large, Freedman, or do you see this number potentially growing as the week goes on? Because Dallas defensively, offensively starting to look like a real contender here in the NFC. Do you think that the 16.5 stays where it is and people should lock it in now?
So I bet it at 14.5 in the look ahead market. It's coming, shout out me. But 16.5 is right where I have it projected. That said, I still think it moves to 17 because Cowboys money is going to come in because they're a public team, and who is going to want to bet on the Texans? Like, what is the number I would have to set to make you think, all right, now I'm going to put money on the line and bet on the worst team in the NFL? This number would have to be above 20 to make you think, all right, I'm doing it. So I think it gets to 17, and it might go beyond 17.
Fitz, what are your thoughts on this one? Obviously a huge number, but what do you think about week 14 value on this game?
I just can't bet a favorite that tall in the NFL. And I've got to readjust this. Like, I had it around 2 touchdowns, and I just have not adjusted enough based on what we saw in week 13. But I will point out that the Cowboys were barely beating the Colts before that fourth quarter, where you would feel pretty good if you were a Colts better going into that fourth quarter before the roof completely caved in on your head. I just I on principle do not like betting NFL favorites at 14 or more. Really disinterested in this game, either betting it or watching it. Let me know what happens on Sunday night. I'm just kind of staying away.
Well, Fitz teased this before. The Minnesota Vikings, 10-2 now. They are 1-point favorites on the road against the Detroit Lions, who, let's be honest, went out there offensively and put a hurting on the Jacksonville Jaguars. They are now 5-7. Things trending in a good direction for the Lions the last few weeks, playing very competitive games, coming out with some W's, some heartbreaking losses too, because that's the Lions. But this number is 53. Obviously, Jared Goff at home is a very different Jared Goff. We know that, and we saw that again on display yesterday. Yeah, you did get Jameson Williams back in this game. He didn't do anything yet. That is another piece of this puzzle. DeAndre Swift starting to look better also. This one at the money line, minus 110 for either of these teams to win. It's basically a pick 'em. Last week, we talked about maybe the Vikings maybe not getting enough respect here against the Jets. So, Fitz, where's your respect level here with the Minnesota Vikings as they head to Detroit?
Oh, it's not very high, Joe. That might surprise you, as I've been declaring all year. And this is the crazy thing. In Minnesota's last 10 games, they have 9 one-score wins. Their last 10 games, 9 of them have been victories by 8 points or fewer. When I projected this game on Saturday, I was originally at Minnesota -2. And I had to drop that after yet another incredibly lucky win by the Vikings, in which they were outgained by something like 200 yards, but the Jets kept shooting themselves in the foot as they got close to the red zone. So, the Vikings have this serious bend but don't break defense. They just keep bending and bending and bending. And for some reason, they never break. But the trends in this series, last 4 games between the Lions and Vikings, 2 2-point wins for the Vikings, 1 2-point win for the Lions, 1 4-point win for the Vikings. Like, this is going to be a close game, probably high scoring. I just don't want to bet this. It's going to finish right around the number, and it's probably going to be decided inside the final 2 minutes of the game. So,
Freedman, is this the same sort of thing where maybe you're looking for the over, or you're looking for some individual prop value, but not necessarily on this game since it is so close, and obviously it's going to appear, at least from Vegas' standpoint, to be another tight one?
I think if you want the total, it's fine. It's already pretty high. What is it? 52.
Yeah, 50.
I have it projected at 52.5. I could see moving it up to 53. I can see if you're going to take a position on the total, I think you're taking the over, but I don't mind the Lions here. It would not surprise me if this flipped, and by kickoff, the Lions are 1.5 point favorites. And not that there's a massive move from, 1 to -1, but I have this as a pick 'em right now. I just looked at it in the look ahead market, saw it was wrong, bet it at +3. I still see value on the Lions here, even at this number of 1.
Can I make
yeah, sure.
Just one point about that total. So when they played earlier this year in Minnesota, won 28-24, so 52 right around the number. I guess this number makes sense. But I will point out that neither team produced 300 yards in that game. Detroit outgained Minnesota 277-250. And so like it probably should have played a little under the 52 points it played at in that game. I don't know. Like, I don't love the over here as much as Freedman
Well,
does.
it's already declined, Pat, from 52 to 52.5, and now the consensus number is 53. Do you wait and see if it grows even more and then bet the under? Or do you think you lock it in now before it maybe starts going the other way?
I might look to lock this in at, I have it at 52. So if I can get it at 53, I might just take it now. I don't know if it goes any higher than that.
All right, the Philadelphia Eagles put on a show. Boy, oh boy, was I wrong. I thought the Titans were going to be the team to take it to the Eagles. The Eagles took it to the Titans big time. They are 6.5-point favorites over the New York Football Giants in New York. Jalen Hurts was terrific. A.J. Brown, even better. 45.5 is the number on this one. Plus 225 if you like the Giants. The Giants are now 7-4-1 after tying with the Washington Commanders. Look, at this point, Fitz, with the Eagles, I mean, this is really the easy bet, right? The Eagles have looked very strong. Do you just continue to go ahead and take this number now? Do you think this number is going to grow as the week goes on? Because it feels like it might, as everybody sort of marinates on the performance of the Eagles against a very tough Titans team. And let's be honest, the Giants, especially offensively, leave a lot to be desired at this point.
I might wait to see if it gets to 7.5 and then grab the Giants as a home dog. I love betting the home dogs. But this was an impressive performance by the Eagles after 3 kind of shaky games. I mean, they had that home loss to the Washington Commanders earlier, and then narrow wins over the Colts and Packers. So the Eagles had not looked sharp, and then they just blew the doors off a very good AFC team yesterday. So that was impressive. But at the same time, the Giants, undermanned against a hot Washington Commanders team, hung throughout that game and probably should have won if not for a couple silly mistakes. So, like the Giants are plucky under Dable. And if this gets over 7.5, I'm going to take those points. But as of now, I see no value.
How about you here, Freedman? Do you see any value in this one early on? Because obviously the Eagles 6.5. To me, I thought this would be a bigger number, to be honest with you. I think you're giving the Giants a lot of respect, maybe too much.
Yeah, I echo what Fitz said. We're lockstep on this, and aligned with the market. 6.5 is where it is almost universally across all the books. I have it at 6.5. Fitz has it at 6.5. If it climbed up to 7.5, I would definitely be taking the Giants here. I do see value on the under at 45.5. Outdoor divisional game in December with 2 teams that like to run the ball. It feels like an under spot. I have it projected at 44.1.
All right. And the Giants on the money line plus 225. If you think the Eagles have any letdown or in division woes here, it's weird because the Eagles sometimes. Do you feel like they're a team, guys, that plays up to their competition and down to their competition at times? I feel like that's something that worries me slightly with this team at times. Do you guys get that feeling at all?
Yeah, that's a good observation. I do get that feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say one thing that I definitely moved them up because it was an impressive win over the Titans.
It was. Very.
I do want to say, though, the Titans, they feel also kind of like a team that is like Jekyll and Hyde, to where like 80% of the time they're one team and then 20% of the time they are just total crap. And
well, like you 20% Freedman is that time where they get behind. Yeah, I think the Freedman. I think the 20% is just the time when they fall behind early because they can't dig themselves out of that hole through the air. They're just not that team. If they can get you to like a 10-10 game at half, they've got you in their wheelhouse. Like that's it. They're going to grind you out. But if they fall down 20-10 in the first quarter, that's bad news for the Titans. They just can't seem to dig themselves out of that hole. Let's go to the next one here on the board. These 2 teams are going to match up 2 times in the next coming month here. Baltimore Ravens and Pittsburgh Steelers. This game becomes infinitely more interesting now. Steelers coming off a win, Baltimore coming off a win, but Baltimore really losing Lamar Jackson possibly for an extended period of time. We shall see as we get more information. It could be a week, could be no time. We don't know yet. But that means there's opportunity here for this line. Pittsburgh defense starting to play a little bit better too, obviously, since TJ Watt's return. The Steelers at home, 1-point favorites in this game. 38 is the over-under. That feels about right. You get even money on Baltimore if you want to take them to win outright. Freedman, what do you think about this game here? Is this the beginning of the end for the Baltimore Ravens as they look to have, again, 2 games against Pittsburgh, and then they have another game to close out the year against Cincinnati? And this offense has been sputtering for weeks now.
Yeah, Huntley, the backup quarterback, he was good as a fantasy player last year, but there was still a pretty big difference between him and Lamar Jackson in terms of their values to the spread. And so this number was, I believe, let me make sure I'm right. I think it was 4.5 in the look ahead market. And with the move that we've seen through 0, where the Steelers are now favored. I mean, obviously, this line is indicating that Lamar Jackson is not expected to start this week by the market, and I think that's accurate. We also had left tackle Ronnie Stanley, who was out. So a backup quarterback without his left tackle, it makes sense that we have the Steelers favored in this spot, who've actually been playing pretty well over the past month, getting better on offense. And with defense, you have TJ Watt there. That helps a lot, even though their secondary is suffering from some injuries. So I have this projected at -1.5 going towards Pittsburgh. So, I think there's a little bit of value there on the Steelers. But, that's also assuming that there's no Lamar Jackson. And I think that's very likely, but, we can't lock that in for sure yet.
Fitz, how do you feel about this game as we look ahead early to Baltimore and Pittsburgh?
Well, I don't think we see Lamar because we have heard the original or the reports saying that they don't think it's going to be a season-ending injury. Well, that certainly does not make it sound like he's going to bounce back for Week 14. So I think we do see Tyler Huntley in this game. And in his 4 starts last year, he was sacked 15 times and threw 4 interceptions. So there are mistakes that are going to be made. And in fact, he faced the Steelers in the regular season finale last year. Huntley was 16 of 31 for 141 yards with no touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and 3 sacks. So that kind of makes you want to lean towards the Steelers. But really, what is the advantage in terms of point differential, Kenny Pickett versus Tyler Huntley? Is it more than a point? I don't know if it's more than a point. And I know which team's infrastructure I like more, even with the Ronnie Stanley injury. If Ronnie Stanley were healthy, I mean, I would think the Ravens' infrastructure would be worth more, 4 or 5 points. Just 4 points, take away the quarterback position. I would think the Ravens are at least 4 or 5 points better than the Steelers. Ronnie Stanley maybe levels things a little bit, but I can't get on board with the Steelers here. I'm kind of inclined to just not bet this, but I see this as close to a pick 'em.
I'm actually very much on the Pittsburgh side of this game, guys. I think that Pittsburgh is that crowd was very fired up a couple weeks ago for that game against the Bengals. I think Kenny Pickett is continuing to figure things out. I think there's gonna be a lot of motion there. This is a huge game. They hate. I mean, just ask Scott Bachman how much Steeler fans hate the Ravens. This is going to be a really big opportunity. And I think when you have an opponent like this that's been your nemesis for so many years, you kick them when they're down, and they're down right now. As good as they've been defensively these last few weeks, and they have been, but man, offensively, they just can't seem to get anything going. So if they can Pittsburgh can get one lucky score in there, that might be the difference. There might not be any coming back from that.
Yeah,
the Jacksonville.
Sorry, I just had to follow up on what you said, Joe. I think you're absolutely right. And to Fitz's point about thinking of infrastructure, I think organizationally, kind of top down, big picture, he's right. But I think we have the better quarterback, we have the better wide receivers, we have the team that's at home, and the Steelers might have the better defense. If it's not better, it's about the same.
In a game where you want to grind out maybe a little bit, maybe the better running back too. I mean, maybe. Najee pushing guys down to the ground pretty ferociously. That was a pretty angry run there that he had where he pushed that defensive back down to the ground and planted him. I don't know if he's going to grow out a flower anytime soon, but my goodness, he was pretty deep into the earth. The Jacksonville Jaguars 4-8. Somehow Trevor Lawrence was able to walk back into this game. I don't know how. After watching that injury, I thought, oh my God, Trevor Lawrence is done. I was not thinking positively after that, but he came back. Unfortunately, it was not enough for them. They came up with another loss. They're 4-8. The Tennessee Titans licking their wounds a little bit, 7-5. This is the perfect opponent for, I think, Tennessee to have here. 3.5 point favorites at home. 41.5 is the number. plus 163 on the money line. Fitz, let's start with you with this one. Derrick Henry's been a little slow lately in terms of productivity. Hasn't quite been, typically we're used to seeing December, after Thanksgiving. This is what I like to call the Derrick Henry season, where defenses stop wanting to tackle people and Derrick Henry starts running them over. Doesn't seem to be going in that direction this year. I mean, we finally seeing the King look a little old here at this point in the season. And do you think that this is in any way, shape, or form a dangerous game for the Tennessee Titans?
Boy, this will be telling, Joe, because this certainly seems like a get right spot for Derrick Henry.
Sure does.
But boy, I don't know how dangerous this feels. And we were just talking about the Titans and Joe, you made the point, and I think it was a good one, that the Titans are not built to play from behind. And, part of it is this team is just, they're such overachievers. And I have, as Freedman knows, immense respect for Mike Vrabel. I think he's, as far as motivational and getting his team ready to play week after week, I think he's maybe the best in the NFL. But
too bad they don't give him more to work with sometimes. I mean, that's what's frustrating. Like, he is such a great coach. And maybe, how long can you play the narrative of us against the world before he starts to get frustrating? We're just like, I just need a little bit more help.
Yeah, and that's it. Why do they occasionally come out with these clunkers like the one they played against Philly in week 13? And it's because all of a sudden you realize, wow, they're really undermanned. So, they can overachieve 8 times out of 10, but those 2 times they're going to be out-talented, so to speak. But I don't think they're going to be out-talented against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And we rarely see, maybe it is 2 out of 10 games where the Titans disappoint. Rarely do the Titans play 2 bad games in a row. And I think they are going to come home with steam coming out of their ears after the way they played in Philly on Sunday. And, they've got, this is a homecoming type matchup. You don't schedule the strong teams for homecoming. You schedule the cupcake. They've got a cupcake coming back home against the Jaguars. They've won 5 in a row against the Jags. The last time they lost to Jacksonville was week 3 of 2019. You mentioned it, Joe, like Trevor Lawrence. Like, he can't be fully 100% healthy after that injury that I was sure was a torn ACL.
Oh, I thought he was done for the year. I was
maybe
like, well,
multiple knee ligaments. I mean, it looked bad. Yeah. And to see him like jogging back onto the field was just amazing. But yeah, he can't be fully right for this game. So I really like the Titans here.
Freedman, is it just as simple as this, as it looks, as it appears?
When Fitz was waxing poetic about the Titans and Mike Vrabel, I had to go look at our projections just to see where he had them. So Fitz has them at -5. I have it at -3.75. Right. I'm basically right in line with the market. I don't have much to say about this game, except there's a chance that I'm not taking into account the potential injury or not potential injury. He is injured. Trevor Lawrence is injured, but the extent, the impact of that injury. So that's something I'm going to be looking at in the injury reports throughout the week. And maybe I need to downgrade the Jags a little bit more because of that. But also thinking on the injury front, this Titans team is really injured. And that is one of the things to where it's like they're undermanned to begin with, but then they are especially undermanned. They're missing cornerback Caleb Farley, safety Lonnie Johnson, and then now Elijah Molden and Christian Fulton at cornerback. They're injured. Like, they could be without like their 3 starting cornerbacks. They're missing Zach Cunningham, one of their starting off-ball linebackers, and now they're missing David Long, their other starting off-ball linebacker. They've been without edge rusher Danico Autry, who's their main edge rusher at this point. They've been without him for a couple of weeks. There's no guarantee that he comes back in this game. And Treylon Burks, their main wide receiver, he went out with a concussion. No guarantee he comes back this week. Like, they are significantly injured, and there's no chance that they're getting all of these guys back this week. So I'm downgrading them on the injury front, like the short-term injury front this week, more than I am almost any other team.
They're also 3-0 in the division. This would put them to 4-0 in the division and possibly sew it up for them. I think they realize the gravity of this game. If you handle your business, you've at least punched your ticket practically to the playoffs, which means if you do that, you can afford to rest some of those guys. Seeding doesn't matter. Only one team's getting the bye. You're not going to be it. So win this game, get right, get healthy, and then take your shots in the playoffs. That's probably what Mike Vrabel's speech is going to be. Spoiler alert, everybody. I just stole it. All right, let's go to the next one here. Talk about get right games. This is the perfect time for Patrick Mahomes to have the Denver Broncos. There we go. Let's go, baby. Let's ride to Mile High. Let's do it. The Denver Broncos 3-9. They are 9-point underdogs at home to the Kansas City Chiefs. 43 is the number, plus 330 on the money line for the Denver Broncos. Freedman, look, Patrick Mahomes played hard yesterday. They came up short. We all saw what happened there. This is when you go to Denver and you take out all your frustrations on Russell Wilson, on the Denver Broncos. And I know the Denver Broncos defensively are a good team. And I know people are going to look at this and say, well, but look how they hold the Baltimore Ravens. I don't think people realize how bad the Ravens offense truly has been in 2022. So let's not give them too much credit here. Freedman, what do you think about this number here? Do you think it grows over time? What does your number say here? Is it at 9, above or below?
I feel really dirty with this game. I have it projected at 7.25, and okay. I don't feel good about it. But I've bet it. I'm on the Broncos at 9.5, and I'm also on the under. This is like my hashtag brand, like betting Broncos unders. And of course, this line has moved against me. This line has moved up a little bit to 43. But I just got to say, wherever people think this line should be, Broncos games have finished 10 points under the market on average to this point. So in a low-scoring game with a team at home, at altitude, in December, in a divisional matchup, getting almost 10 points, I kind of have to take it, and I don't feel good about it. But this defense is so good. And the thing is, people like we have been high. I have been high on the Chiefs to this point, especially when the Chiefs have been big favorites. Like it is a different approach. Like I think they can win games by big margins, but they don't do it because they don't need to. Like they lack the killer instinct to just like pile on the points when they can. So I even if like a 7-point game is right there, sure, that's fine. I think that's where this number should be. But the Chiefs aren't going out of their way to put the boot on the neck of the opponent and kill them when they're down. They're just fine to let them kind of die the gentle death.
Well, like last couple of weeks, certainly some frustrating times. I mean, that Rams game was very close there. There was a very tight contest, but Sean McVay was very prepared. He got them fired up to play the Chiefs. Fitz, I understand exactly what Freedman's saying, and it makes a lot of sense. But I'm talking about Andy Reid preparation versus Nathaniel Hackett preparation at the end of the day, and I just don't think they're going to be able to keep pace with the Chiefs in any way. I think the Chiefs feel what Freedman's saying. I think they're hearing that, and I think they're overdue for a little bit of this classic Chiefs putting 38 on somebody. And look, it still might go to the under. Just want to say if that happens, because the Denver Bronco offense is not good either. But what do you think about this game?
Well, first of all, I owe Freedman an apology because on the live stream yesterday, I called him a Chiefs Patrick Mahomes fanboy. And his selection this week, clearly I was mistaken in labeling him as such. I agree. It feels a little tall because Kansas City, I've been burned on several occasions betting them as big favorites the last couple of years. They just don't seem to step on the throat very well. I didn't want to bet them against the Rams a few weeks ago when, one of the biggest mismatches you could possibly have. But the trends here, not good for the Broncos. Kansas City has won 13 straight games against Denver, going back to week 2 of 2015. This predates Patrick Mahomes. And let's take a real quick trip down memory lane, fellas. So that was, September 17th, 2015. Denver won 31-14, 31-24, their last win against the Chiefs. Peyton Manning had 3 touchdown passes.
This is Peyton Manning.
2 of them to Emmanuel Sanders, 1 to Virgil Green. The late Demaryius Thomas had 116 yards for Denver. And Jamal Charles had 125 rushing yards and a touchdown for the Chiefs. It's been a while since Denver has beat Kansas City, and they've never beaten Patrick Mahomes. Do we really think this Russell Wilson Denver offense is going to be the one that slays the dragon? I kind of don't think so. So don't want to bet the Chiefs as a big favorite. Don't want to bet the Broncos. Just going to walk away.
Just gonna walk away. All right. Let's go to the next one here. Carolina and Seattle. Seattle is now 7-5. They're gonna host the Panthers. They are 5-point favorites at home. We're getting updates right now. I just saw this morning Ken Walker. They're getting some tests done on the ankle to see where he is at. Obviously, that would be a huge loss in this game. Could impact the line, but still, Carolina has been bad this year. 43.5 is the number, plus 185 on the money line for the Panthers here. Do you see any early value at all for Fitz on this game?
Not either way. I don't. I'm pretty much right on the spread and the total as far as my projection. So not inclined to bet it. But can I ask you guys a quick question? Do you think Geno Smith is going to be starting for someone, whether it's Seattle or anyone else in 2023?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. He is now minus 700 for comeback player of the year, by the way, which I don't know what he came back from except from obscurity. Like, I don't know what, I don't understand what I guess that counts. But
that broken jaw like 7 years ago.
Right, that's what it was. I mean, but yeah, I mean, especially with the need for quarterbacks in the league, I would imagine he's going to have an opportunity somewhere. I mean, I would keep him if I was Pete Carroll, wouldn't you?
I think they keep him.
I think so. But like looking at this game at 5.5, the first thought is, can Geno Smith cover kind of a big number by himself with no running game, because it's going to be just a precipitous drop off from Ken Walker to DJ Dallas, like big fall off. So it's going to be Geno single-handedly slinging it around to beat Carolina. Can he do it? My first thought is, I think he can do it. So although I don't want to bet it, like I don't want to bet against Geno either at this point.
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly there. I don't want to bet it, but I'm not betting against Geno Smith. It is the Carolina Panthers, Freedman. Do you think that's all you need here for this 5?
Yeah, I do want to bet it, and I did bet it. I have it projected at 7.25, and to Fitz's point, the running game could be pretty nasty for the Seahawks, because it's not just Kenneth Walker. DJ Dallas also had an ankle injury, and I think he was like technically like doubtful to enter the game, and then they needed to put him back in the game. Travis Homer is also dealing with a knee injury and illness, so he wasn't active last week, but there's a chance he comes back this week, and so maybe he could be the lead back. But it's the running game. I don't think it matters all that much. Carolina is terrible. Geno Smith is having a fantastic season here, and at home, like he's been pretty good at home. Historically, the Seahawks have a massive advantage at home. You have Carolina traveling across the country. I think this is a very desirable spot to be backing the Seahawks.
Seattle is 3-2 at home this year, and just looking at where they're at right now, again, another W for them. They're right in the thick of things, and who knows? I mean, with the injury in the game we're going to talk about next to San Francisco's quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo, who knows? Perhaps the West is actually up for grabs again. Is it possible? San Francisco 8-4, but losing Jimmy Garoppolo for the season, so Brock Purdy takes over at QB. Yeah, that's right. Iowa State, right? If memory serves. Yes, guys. Iowa State.
Dirty Purdy.
Dirty Purdy from the Iowa State. Let's go. Iowa State, the hub of so many great quarterbacks over the years. Let's go to the numbers here. San Francisco still 3-point favorites at home, and I think as they should be. Defense is still very good. Still plenty of weapons here. Brock Purdy did what he had to do. 37.5 is the number for the over-under, plus 140 if you like the Bucs. I am out of the business of the Bucs, Matthew Freedman. They have not inspired any faith in me whatsoever. I would be on the San Francisco side. I just don't know if there's any value here in this. Do you?
Yeah, I'm the sicko who's going to be betting on Tampa Bay in this spot.
Okay.
They are significantly injured right now in the secondary, but I'm imagining that at least one of those guys ends up making it back by week 14. So, free safety, Mike Edwards, cornerback, Sean Murphy-Bunting, safety, Antoine Winfield, who's, playing a little more as a slot corner. I think one of those guys returns. All of them were listed as doubtful this week. And so, that kind of puts them on the trajectory for playing next week. And if all of those guys return, all of a sudden you have a secondary that's looking pretty good going against a third string rookie, literally the last pick of the draft this year. He is the actual Mr. Irrelevant. And, fine. He looked good. But that was in a game coming out of nowhere. I'm just going to put my foot down and say Tom Brady should not be an underdog against a third-string rookie quarterback. I'm just going to say that, assert it as objective fact. And so my number, having said that, I have this at exactly 3. That's the number, but I don't care. I do not care. I will be betting on Tom Brady in this spot.
All right. The gut over the numbers here in this one. Pat, if Tom Brady should lose again to the New Orleans Saints, you think this number changes at all?
It could change if they really lay an egg against New Orleans on Monday night. So, yeah, like, I don't know if the right move is to take this early, because I'm with Freedman. Like, Tom Brady is a 3-point dog to Mr. Irrelevant. And of course, there are, 100 other guys involved in this game who are going to have some bearing on how things go down. But the 49ers had not been good offensively in recent weeks, and actually had one of their better offensive performances with Brock Purdy playing. I don't know if that's going to repeat, though. So I think rather than wait and maybe have Tampa play well against New Orleans and this line loses some of its value, I think I'm going to lock it in at 3. I just, as many issues as I have, Joe, like you, I'm not eager to put money on the Buccaneers again. But,
I'm not. I'm more eager if they lose tonight, though. I'm more eager if they lose tonight, because if they lose tonight, I think the 3 goes to maybe 3.5. Could even be the faith is dying quickly, I think, for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and rightfully so. They've kind of self-inflicted wounds here to a certain extent. So that's how I look at this one. But who knows, if they win convincingly, maybe it looks very different, this line. Maybe this line becomes 1 at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I have to say, the discount from Garoppolo to Purdy, I have it at 4, but I feel like there's significant room for error in that projection, and not to the upside. Garoppolo, as much as he might frustrate fantasy managers and 49ers fans, he has been a very functional quarterback within that system for over half a decade. The drop off to a 7th round rookie has to be pretty significant. And as good as Purdy looked last week, there's no guarantee he looks anything like that this week. So I have the difference between them as being 4 points, but the difference could be more like 6 or 7 points.
All right, last couple games here on the slate. We're going to hit up for week 14. Miami Dolphins, seems like Tua is all right going to play, it seems like, against Los Angeles Chargers. 6-6 are the Chargers. They're a 3-point home underdogs, as they should be. There's no advantage there. 51.5 is the total for this game, plus 128. Freedman, is that 51.5 too low?
I think that is a good number. I have it. Well, yeah, I have it 52.3.
I think it's low.
I haven't bet it. This is a game that I feel a little bit weird about, in part because of the Tua injury, and it looks like he's going to play. Tom Pelissero said he could have re-entered the game if they'd needed him to. But on the side, I'm showing value on the Chargers, and I feel kind of disgusting about it, and I wanted to look at some more things on that. But I have this at Chargers underdogs by 1.25 points. And so at 2.5, I think there's value there. And one thing that does give me a little bit of pause on this is that the Dolphins are staying on the West Coast. So that's sort of like the Shanahan trick that Mike McDaniel learned. When traveling on the same coast, you just stay there. And so I think the normal road disadvantage that the Dolphins have had will be diminished this week. And so I need to adjust for that a little bit more. So my numbers are showing some value on the Chargers, but I'm not sure how much I actually trust it.
Fitz, what's your trust level here in this game?
A little bit of value on the Chargers. I think I've got it at -1.5 for Miami. And I've also got it a little to the under, just because of the uncertainty about Tua's ankle. And the Dolphins running game sort of disappeared on Sunday. And granted, they were playing a very, very stout run defense of San Francisco. And now they're going to be playing one of the worst run defenses in the league. But I do worry a bit when a running game just goes belly up like that. So I don't know if this one plays over. I'm not feeling wildly confident about it. But as Freedman knows, I hate betting Chargers games. So I'm probably just not going to do anything on this one.
All right, last one, Monday Night Football. We've got the New England Patriots on tap going to Arizona. Arizona 4-8, the Pats 6-6. The Patriots are 1.5 point favorites in this game on the road. 43.5 is the number, plus 105 on the money line. Fitz, is the wrong team favored here?
Yeah, Freedman is going to. I'm not going to steal the Cliff Kingsbury narrative from Freedman. That is his thing to talk about. So I'm not going to say that. I'm just going to say that I do like the Cardinals as a home dog here. And I originally projected this at 42 points, but I've since bumped it up to 43. That still puts me on the under, but like I'm not confident in betting this. And if anything, I almost want to be in the over because the Patriots have become really pass heavy in like neutral game scripts lately. There has been a subtle sea change in the way their offense works. And maybe it's not having Damian Harris, but they're a little more willing to throw it around these days. So whereas I once
not if you ask Mac Jones.
right, yeah, and some of his mouthings on the sideline. So yeah, maybe they didn't, but maybe they should throw it around more. So I'm not betting the under here. Not sure I can go over, but yeah, it's an interesting game, and I'll let Freedman take it away on the Kingsbury.
Go ahead, Freedman. The floor is yours for the Kingsbury Nuggets of the day.
Built up into this thing. I mean, okay, yeah, Cliff Kingsbury, good as an underdog. Okay, so anyway, past that, but I'm not going to say the wrong team is favored here, but like Fitz, I think this game is very close to a pick 'em. And so at home, Arizona coming off of the bye. Yeah, I do see value here on them. And this was 2 in the look ahead market. It's moved down to 1.5. And I think at some books, it might even be 1 now. So it would not surprise me if this got to a pick 'em or flipped by the time we had the kickoff here.
All right, Freedman, give me your favorite bets in the look ahead early market for week 14.
Favorite bet. I mean, it is so disgusting, but I have to say Denver. And I'm going to hate myself for it. I'm going to say Denver and the under for that game. Let me make sure I'm just seeing the right number here. It is available 9.5 at DraftKings and the under 43. I like both of those, and it's very possible I just have a total wrong read on that game. And
look, you might get the under and still get the 9. Like you know, that's a very distinct possibility with this Denver Broncos offense. Fits for you. Any early lock-in look aheads?
Well, the president of the Patrick Mahomes fan club is going to be knocking at Freedman's door, demanding his membership card later today. So, yeah, I like the Bengals, Joe, to really thump the Browns. Revenge game narrative after the Halloween whipping they took. So, yeah, I mean, only 4.5. Give me Bengals minus 4.5. Tennessee also in a little bit of a revenge spot coming off the bad game against the Eagles, minus 3.5 over Jacksonville. And I'll jump on the Kingsbury narrative and take the Cards getting 1.5 at home.
There you have it. All right. Don't forget, everybody, to go subscribe to the YouTube channel over at Betting Pros, youtube.com/Betting Pros. Click that little bell till it goes ding for notifications, and check out bettingpros.com for all of the great content here that we're offering. That'll do it for us. But the story of the game goes on. For Pat Fitzmaurice and Matthew Freedman, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.